Hello, magical galactic family. Today we begin a new Wavespell cycle, 13 days anchored in the energy of the blue storm. You can watch the video on the structure of wave spells if you don't know what they are, and also the video the structure of the token. We're also halfway through the White Northern Castle of Crossing that you can learn more about through the video The 5 Destiny Castles. Blue Magnetic Storm is actually a special day. It is called the noospheric constant. The noosphere is the mental planetary sphere that you can learn more about by watching the video called the noosphere. And today there's actually a noospheric online festival happening on Instagram that I'll be a part of. You will find the details about the festival and how you can tune in the description of this video. So, what's the blue storm all about? I've talked about this archetype before when last year we were in the energy of the blue lunar storm, but let's dive deeper into what this energy represents. His Mayan name is Kawak. If you remember the meaning of the colors, how blue is always transformation, well, I call the blue storm the ultimate power of transformation, the final purification before we can enter into a stage of enlightenment, represented by the yellow sun archetype, which comes right after the blue storm. For more information about the meaning of the 4 colors, you can check out the video The 4 Clans. For me, the blue storm feels a lot like the arrival of the thunder beings, which shatter all the false constructs of the ego. Its purifying rain washes away all that no longer serves us. Its lightning reveals what we must release. And when this archetype is present, he guides us on a deep transformation of our being, and many times this can feel just like a storm. It feels as if the whole world is collapsing around us, and this is happening because the storm asks us to let go of the very things that we are holding on to that have become a cage for our soul. So, if the World Bridger's energy hasn't worked its magic on you yet, making you release all the fears, limitations, distortions, illusions, and patterns, the storm is going to push you to do so, no matter how painful it might be for the ego. During a few blue storm wave spells, I would find myself in intense situations like family problems and struggles that were shaking the very foundation of my being. It felt as if I was in the middle of a frightening hurricane, soaking wet and crying out to heaven in rage and hopelessness. But the storm is actually offering us a gift. After the storm passes, washing away all the impurities, only the true self remains. What we need to learn is how to find the place of stillness and silence in the eye of the storm. Here we are no longer touched by the destruction happening all around us. In this place is where we become the witness, finding absolute detachment. It's like all of a sudden somebody gave us an umbrella, and now we can look at the storm and be in it without getting wet. And if we've paid attention to the World Bridger wave spell, we can use faith, acceptance, and surrender to navigate the storm. In the eye of the storm is where absolute acceptance lies. This is where we find our true freedom. The blue storm asks us to taste the sweet ecstasy of freedom and to remember that freedom is our deepest inner nature. But what is freedom? Besides the ability of making choices based on our free will, choosing what our inner voice is telling us to do, freedom is also the understanding that we are an actor playing in the grand theater of life. Freedom means that we can play any part we want or any part that is required of us in the moment. the hero, the villain, the warrior, the saint, the mother, the child. It means that we can jump in between roles without being attached or identified with them. Our soul is the actor, and all of these different roles are just the part we play in the cosmic game of life. But in the shadows, the blue storm is going to be the one fighting with the storm. This happens because, in truth, freedom is a huge responsibility, and responsibility means being held accountable for our actions. And this is why many people give up their freedom so easily. They do not want to take responsibility for their actions or the consequences of their actions. It's much easier to be a sheep in the crowd following the herd, so that if anything goes wrong, we can put the blame on the shepherd who was guiding us. But because it's such a big responsibility, the blue storm might try to run away from it. And since freedom is his inner nature, the more he runs away from it, the bigger the unconscious anger that gets accumulated, and the bigger the feeling of separation from the source. So without being grounded into who he is, playing with all of these different masks and dealing with a lot of unconscious anger, when the storm hits and asks him to release all of the masks, the ego will fight the storm. But we can't stop the rain from falling, the thunder from echoing, the lightning from striking with our egotistical willpower. No matter how much we fight the storm, its incredible power of transformation is only going to become that more intense to make us let go. Because keep in mind, the storm is here to actually make us let go of the very things that we are holding on to, that have become a cage for our soul, and we are holding on to them due to the fears of the ego that feels it's going to dissolve or die if he lets go. The way this looks like is that the storm gets harder and more intense to make us let go, so we hold on even harder. And then it gets even more intense and we hold on even harder until it becomes so unbearable and painful to hold on that we have no choice but to let go, and that's when we enter the eye of the storm. A key to navigating the storm, instead of being all the victim and, oh, why is this happening to me? What we should be asking is, what is this storm asking me to let go of? Or what is this storm trying to teach me? This way, by asking these questions, we can shift our whole experience. Blue storms were incredibly difficult for me until I started to ask these questions. And it's important to understand that it's not about stopping the rain from falling. It's about finding the gifts and the lessons revealed by the rain. Storms aren't all that bad, even if they can be scary. Think about just how the rain feeds the earth, waters the plants, and refreshes the entire atmosphere. And let's not forget about rainbows. Without storms, there would be no rainbows. And there's another reason why in the shadow the blue storm struggles with embracing its infinite freedom. Since most people aren't living in their true freedom, when a free soul shows up who asks to be able to manifest his freedom, the sheep will try to bring this free thinker down to their level to make him let go of his freedom, so he just becomes another face in the crowd. Because Blue Storm wants to be accepted by his surroundings just like any other human being, he'll reject his inner nature and let go of his freedom and actually build all sorts of inner barrier and cages to keep himself from expressing his freedom. This leads to the development of a lot of unconscious frustrations and anger that gets accumulated and throws him off balance. And these cages can be many things. Their addictions, the limitation of their emotions, their patterns, their beliefs. Sometimes a job can be a cage, a relationship, a living situation, a stage in our life. And the good news is that freedom being its deep inner nature, they cannot run away from it for too long until the storm hits and asks them to embrace their freedom. And therefore the blue storm is the one that liberates us from all of the inner and outer cages that we have built, so that we can manifest the totality of our being without fear or limitations. But This process will also bring to the surface a lot of shadows, which is another reason why the blue storm might be easier for the blue storm to run away rather than to embrace its freedom, so as to avoid dealing with the shadows. Again, this is where detachment and acceptance come in. We need to detach from our shadows to stop being identified with them so that we can accept them. From this place of total and absolute acceptance is where we actually gain the ability to alchemize the shadow into light. This is why the blue storm is an alchemist of energies. And blue storm, just as the Skywalker, has the ability to connect and to experience higher states of consciousness. Stanislav Grof named these higher states of consciousness holotropic states. And if you haven't tried holotropic breathing, I definitely recommend it. It's an amazing experience. Make sure you look it up, and also don't try it by yourself at home, at least not the first time, in case you dive too deep down the rabbit hole. In these holotropic states, we connect to dimensions of consciousness much more powerful than what we are used to experience. The new understandings and the perceptions that we get from those experiences get imprinted in our central nervous system, inducing a very strong purification of our being, body, mind, emotions, and spirits. These powerful experiences make us look at our shadows in order to release them so that we can assimilate these higher states of consciousness into our day-to-day life. But in the shadows, Blue Storm rejects this assimilation process, using his ability to fly away from reality, just as the Skywalker. He'll spend time in any other dimension but this one, not really taking the responsibility to change how he manifests himself. Then a huge vibrational gap gets created between his everyday life and his experience of higher states of consciousness. And all of this causes a lot of physical, mental, and emotional imbalances. So the Blue Storm asks us to look at our life and to see if our spiritual practice or our experience of higher states of consciousness hasn't turned into something that keeps us disconnected from the world and from doing the inner work we have to do. Blue Storm also ends our inner duality and our inner conflicts. If you remember when we spoke about the Skywalker, how in the shadows he's dealing with a lot of inner duality and inner conflicts, we can begin to see the connections between the archetypes of the White Northern Castle of Crossing. Blue Storm also teaches us how to surrender and let go of control so that we can dive into the mystery of life, which is why this archetype comes right after the World Bridger, which starts the purification process of the ego, and the Blue Storm represents the final step in that process. And besides all of the difficult and stormy moments, this Wavespell is also a time of breakthroughs, moving our whole being from the perception of separation into the perception of unity. And it's a time when transformation gets accelerated, reuniting all the parts within our being that are always moving within us. So sometimes it can be that if we have released what we need to during the White World Bridger wave spell, that the Blue Storm becomes a wave spell when things start shifting in very powerful ways. So during these 13 days, take the time to look at the things that are limiting your life and your being. Are you standing in your full freedom? Are you accountable for your actions? What are the things that are keeping you from expressing your absolute freedom? What are the inner and outer cages that you have built within your life? How do you navigate the storms of your life? Can you find the eye of the storm, or are you left out in the rain? Can you surrender to your experience, or are you too busy fighting it? Do you embrace the storm? Do you dance in the rain? Or are you trying to make a rain dance so it all goes away? So for any questions about the Dream Spell calendar, or if you want to have a galactic signature decoding session with me, you have my Facebook page and my email in the description of the video. Don't forget about the online workshop that I have coming up, understanding the 13 lunar tones and the 20 solar seals. This is addressed to people who are already familiar with the codes of the calendar but want to understand more about the light and shadow aspect of the archetypes and how to work with them. It'll be on Kin 88, Yellow Planetary Star, the 27th of November, and it's going to be extended over 3 weekends, 3.5 hours each day. Don't forget that registration is needed to participate, so please read in the link of the event that I will post in the description how you can do that. And if you wish to purchase a Dreamspell Organite pendant that I presented in the previous video, Dreamspell Organite pendants, you can order yours by sending an email or a message on Facebook. Wishing you a transformative Wavespell. Make sure you tune in to the Noospheric Festival as well. And I will see you on the magnetic day of the next Wavespell, the Yellow Magnetic Human, in Lak'Ech.